We've had 2 very busy and hopefully very productive days from your point of view, with many discussions on science for policy in Europe. Now, of course, the big question for all of you is, what next? And that's a very fitting question for our 2 guests here too from the European Commission. And they are Stephen Quest, Director General of the European Commission's Joint Research Centre, and Joanna Drake, whom you've already met, of course, from yesterday. Seems a long time ago now, Joanna, since we started. Joanna being the Deputy Director General with the European Commission's Directorate General for Research and Innovation. We may have our guest joining us from Wallon region, and I will introduce him if I see him coming up. But perhaps, Stephen, and we do indeed have Lionel Bonjean. You're very welcome. Can you hear me and see me? Mr. Bonjean is the Director General of the Service Public Wallon Economie, Emploi et Recherche. You're very welcome, Mr. Bonjean. You are actually scheduled to speak first. Would you like to take a few minutes, or are you happy to start speaking? The topic is what next in terms of science for policy. Perhaps you can just reach out to us and say hello and tell us yes, okay? So can I hand over the floor to you to say some words on what next? Okay, thank you. Are you muted? Okay. Can you just count to 10 and let's see if you can hear us? No, you can't. Okay, so tech guys, perhaps you can see if you can sort that out. And Stephen, in the meantime, if I could ask you to begin. Mr. Bonjean, we'll try and sort out the audio. So we'll start with Stephen.
Great to be with you this afternoon. Thanks for having me. It's a bit presumptuous, really, of me to turn up at the end of the conference and talk to you about what next when I haven't been here listening to it for the last day and a half. I will, with all due humility, I will share some thoughts with you. But please bear with me. Look, the first thing that I wanted to say is that, the title of this session is also around building a better science for policy ecosystem in Europe. And I think the word ecosystem is really important in this title because it's about connecting things together, isn't it? I have the privilege of running a rather large part of the Commission. The JRC is almost 3,000 people spread across 6 sites in the European Union. And we're busy producing a lot of scientific knowledge and evidence to help support the policy process right the way through the policy cycle as well. So, we've already got our own ecosystem there, and it's quite a hard job for me to nurture and manage that just internally. But one thing that we've definitely understood is that we can't do it on our own. And it's not just that we're a large organization, we could be larger, we could be smaller, but it's that you can't possibly bring together all the expertise you need in one single organization. So you have to connect dots and you have to network. So we spend a lot of our time in the JRC trying to connect each other, working across the different boundaries in the organization, and we spend a lot of time trying to connect with others as well. So I think this ecosystem point is really important because it also implies a capacity to respond and to adapt and to evolve, hopefully in a rapid and agile way. And we've seen that we have to do this. We saw it with the pandemic. We see it now with the various crises that are coming at us, that we can't stand still. We have to adapt and respond rapidly. And so your ecosystem is I think, a great way to be doing that. What next now for the science for policy ecosystem? I think, as I see it, there's some good news already, that we can take stock of. And I think, 3 pieces of good news from my perspective. The first is, look at this conference itself. You've got over 1,000 participants coming together to show this community of professionals that's really keen and competent to contribute to this science for policy debate in Europe. And I think the second good news is that there's already an impressive array of good practice, good experience, good practice on how to do science for policy at all levels. And I think you've had more than 20 sessions here which have dug into these different practices and given good examples. So it's not like we're starting with a blank sheet of paper, and we can definitely leverage that expertise and elevate it. And certainly there's a need for us to do that because we feel the need for good science for policy on a daily basis. And I think the third piece of good news is that you can certainly be sure that the European Commission is extremely committed to supporting this and to helping to nurture and animate this conversation going forward. And you've seen that, I think, from the participation of various of my colleagues over the last couple of days. Now, in thinking about what next, maybe I'll give you another three points to think about that I think are particularly important if we're going to get this right. The first is networks. Networks across member states. I think we've seen and heard that everything that we can do to deepen and connect networks and platforms to bring communities of people together is of value, and that we need to be doing this on a regular basis because it helps to build trust, it helps to build connectivity, and it facilitates mutual learning and exchanges. And that in turn enables us to enhance and deepen our capabilities, because together we can do more than we can on our own. I think so this network point is absolutely fundamental, and I think we need to think further about how we can deepen and strengthen a web of networks and platforms, perhaps in different configurations. So we've got policymakers, but we've also got people dealing with research policy, or we've got data analysts or science advisors or behavioralists and so on. But I think we need to find ways of deepening and regularizing this connectivity so that knowledge users and knowledge producers can stay connected and actually exploit the value of what they're doing in an iterative way. And certainly what we're doing in the JRC, working very closely with DG Reform, with DG RTD, tries to already leverage the networks that already exist. And I think more can be done, and certainly we're very keen to engage with you going forward on to see other effective ways that we can help deepen and animate networks on an ongoing basis. I think second point is around people and competencies and trust, because the networks, of course, are made of people, and they need to work together, and trust is essential if we're going to make that happen. So how do we help ensure that this happens? Competencies, I think, are central here. Strengthening competencies become very important, and we've certainly done a lot of work to work up training capacity, material for courses, and our competence frameworks that we've done in the JRC certainly provide, I think, a good platform to take this work forward. But what we shouldn't and we can't do this centrally from the JRC. This needs to be a distributed effort. We can help provide material and use our science to help support you, but then this is an effort that needs to be done at member state level as well, and with national partners. In this context, as well as the competence frameworks, everything we can do to encourage networking, exchanges, will be very, very important, because I think getting people together, getting interaction between people working on similar subjects, seeing how the other side sees it, what's it like being a policymaker if you're a scientist, and vice versa, I think is really, really very, very valuable. And we have some tools in DG Reform and elsewhere which can help foster these exchanges, but I think we need to lean into that. And then the third and final thought is around democracy, because we've seen over the last couple of years the way science has been pushed to the center of political debate, sometimes helpfully, but sometimes it's been distorted, and we see a lot of talk about fake news and mis and disinformation. So how do we ensure that we have robust systems in place to ensure that sound science can inform policy and it can support democracy, and that we don't find science being misused in ways that undermine and debilitate our democratic process? So everything that we can do to ensure transparency and openness and accountability and visibility of science is going to be absolutely fundamental in what I think is going to be a very important process going forward, because we see this is not static, and some of the terrain is quite hostile at the moment, and we need to work hard to make sure that the voice of science is playing a very positive role in taking forward our democratic processes. And in that sense, we need to, I think, really focus on the values that we want to underpin this science and policy ecosystem going forward. So, and the conversations you've been having in the last couple of days, very, very important in that respect. So just to conclude, many, many thanks for your participation over the last couple of days, and please count on our support, both factual but also almost spiritual, in taking forward this discussion, because I think this is a really, really important piece of the puzzle at European level. We face some very significant challenges, and if we can ensure that the voice of science is centre stage, I think we have the best hope possible of having robust, effective policy responses to the challenges we're facing, and hopefully preserving our democratic processes as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Stephen. I just want to check if Lionel Bonjean, if you can hear us now. Mr. Bonjean, can you hear us? And can you, more importantly, talk to us?
Do you hear me?
Yes, brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you very much. It's always daunting when you have technical difficulties joining, and it's stressful. So we all appreciate the fact that you stuck with us. I could see the AV guys in the back room trying to resolve the problem. So thank you very much for that. Mr. Bonjean, just to put in context, we have been discussing, of course, as you know, science for policy in Europe and building science for policy ecosystems over the last 2 days. Many topics have been touched on, a range of issues have been discussed. And we now are at the final closing stages of the event, and we're talking about really what next. We've just heard from Stephen Quest, the Director General of the European Commission's Joint Research Centre. So if you may, it would be great to get your views now, and I would just like to reintroduce you to our guests online and here in the room in Brussels. Lionel Bonjean is the Director General of the Wallon Public Service for Economy, Employment and Research. So Mr. Bonjean, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. First of all, I would apologize to be in my office and not with you, but that I have a big problem of agenda today. Thanks to the European Commission for inviting me to join this esteemed panel and share my thoughts on science and policy. A journey toward better integration of scientific evidence in policymaking is not just a national effort, but a collective European aspiration. The European research area has guided our work, and Belgium has proudly contributed to this groundbreaking effort as a nation deeply committed to collaborative progress. The core of science for policy in Europe is a vision where rigorous scientific inquiry becomes service as the foundation for strong and effective policies. It's about creating a dynamic connection between research and policymaking, synergies that lead to a more resilient, sustainable, inclusive, and competitive Europe. It also involves fostering an environment that supports such synergies, with attention to all the stakeholders involved, policymakers, civil servants, researchers from all disciplines, but also the knowledge brokers and the science communicators that contribute to the effectiveness of our evidence-informed policymaking ecosystems. In the 2 decades since the launch of the European research area, we've witnessed the power of collaboration in breaking down barriers and promoting knowledge exchanges. The free movement of researchers, the alignment of research policies, and the development of world-class infrastructures have been the cornerstones of our collective success. The challenges we face today, from climate change to digital transformation, are complex, multifaceted, and interconnected. To navigate these challenges, we need nuanced, evidence-based solutions that grow from interdisciplinary expertise. It's imperative that the scientific community and policymakers collaborate closely, sharing insights, innovations, and best practice. Belgium remains dedicated to the new ERA objectives, focusing on investing in research and innovation for a greener and digital future, improving the access of researchers to essential infrastructure, supporting mobility and skills development, promoting diversity in both people and research careers, and supporting open science practices. The recently adopted communication on a new European research and innovation area serves as a roadmap for the future. Horizon Europe, our flagship program for research and innovation, reflects our collective commitment with a quarter of its budget allocated to the excellence science pillar, strengthening the foundation of the European Union's scientific excellence. Belgium is actively involved in a 2-year project funded by the European Commission to support 7 member states and implemented by the Joint Research Centre and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development.
Oh, have we lost Mr. Lionel? Okay. Or Mr. Bonjean. Okay, actually, it's a really nice blue sky. Oh, you don't see the blue sky. Okay. Well, we should really fire ahead, I think. If we get him back within the next few minutes, we may go to him at the very end. But I think because of time pressures, we will just fire ahead. So great. Joanna Drake, can I please introduce, whom of course you met yesterday. Joanna's going to formally close the session, I think, unless Mr. Bonjean, we get him back fairly soon. Joanna is the Deputy Director General of the European Commission's Directorate General for Research and Innovation. Joanna, over to you.
Thank you very much, Karen. I'm really sorry about Mr. Bonjean, and I thank you for your contribution anyway, and for the support for Science for Policy. But on behalf of the organizers and on behalf of all the speakers, 67 of you, 1,500 participants in person and online, I really would like to thank everyone for contributing to the successful conference. I think yesterday, there was a certain buzz in the room. Today it's a bit more quiet, but I think you're probably drained of your energies. But that means that you have really allowed your energy to be channeled towards thinking about the future, about Science for Policy. And I hope that you have been also inspired, as I have, and energized, as I have, even just being half an hour, 40 minutes yesterday with you. But I'm sure that my colleagues will now bring a lot more to the table. They will harvest their energy with a lot of ideas that we need to put together together with our collaborators in the Commission to see a way forward. But I think just to be very, very concise and very much to the point, what are the main points that I would like to take away with me today at home, or maybe to the office as well? I think that there are 3 main points. One would fall under the category of the do's. And I think what has definitely been a net conclusion from all the discussions and all the panels and all the fish bowls is that we are at a stage in Europe that we need much more best available scientific evidence and advice and bring it to the policymakers. And I think we have heard a lot of justifications for this conclusion, but maybe it is worth reminding why, what is the main driver of all this. And I think today more than ever, Stephen has referred to this a lot as well in his closing remarks, we are confronted with many complex challenges. having us to look at different aspects of expertise, evidence, experience, whether it's about our planet, whether it's about our environment, whether it's about our health. It is essential, first of all, to have scientific evidence. It is essential that we have the correct advice. And it is essential that it reaches policymakers in a timely and appropriate manner. We also looked at the point about how scientific evidence actually buttresses more, I would say, the democratic policy-making machine that Europe stands for. And I think this is a point that we should also nurture. At the European Commission, we are very pleased to see that science for policy is gaining a lot of traction, a lot of support among member states and internationally, for instance, in the G20 and also the United Nations taking steps in discussing future directions as well. We, as European Commission, were already very actively involved in this pipeline, making it first of all available, secondly working efficiently, thirdly valued with policymakers from within the Commission, and this is through the mechanism, so-called the scientific advice mechanism. And after today, I am sure that we shall be, it will be worth your while to watch the space a bit more, because I think we are in a good space to continue strengthening and improving the SAM, the Science Advice Mechanism. And next year, you will have the opportunity to have scientific advice provided on topics such as artificial intelligence, very much not only in the political mainstream, scientific mainstream, but also in governance mainstreams, but also on people's minds, and also on solar radiation modification. The second point I'd like to make is much more in the category of the don'ts. And the don't is, yesterday, I think it was Barbara who, in her opening remarks, said science should inform, but not legitimize. And I think this is really an important mantra that needs to be unpacked and also developed into the ecosystem as well. So I think here there are sort of two facets of this. I think we can agree that science advice and evidence, while being really important, that it is provided, it's available, and it's available at the right time, but it should not be the one eclipsing, if you like, hiding policy decisions and choices that are eventually based on values. Now, of course, this might sound a contradiction in terms. Are we saying that, we should abandon values for science? That's not what I'm saying, and that's not what we're meaning. We're saying that both are important, but certainly we should not allow scientific evidence and advice, while playing an important role, to actually allow political decisions that have already been taken to actually post-legitimize via science. I would reiterate that science should inform policymaking but not replace it. In other words, the political class needs to be allowed to not only do its work, but also to take responsibility and to take responsibility for choices made. But I think that those decisions should be based also on very sound advice and evidence. And I think this is very fundamental in order for science to be trusted and to remain trusted. At the same time, of course, we need to recognize that values have a very central role in policymaking, and so do ethics. So the questions about design, deployment, and uptake of new and emerging technologies cannot be settled by science alone. I think we'll agree with that. And we require careful consideration of ethics and values as well as social deliberation. Technologies of disruptive and transformative character, such as artificial intelligence, raise challenges that scientific evidence cannot tackle on its own. And this is why we need a holistic, styled ecosystem that not only considers science as an important source of knowledge and information, but also major societal concerns regarding technological challenges, in order to also make sure that policy options for overcoming them are socially sustainable as well. And may I point out that the European Group on Ethics in Science and New Technologies were present in full force over the last 2 days and continues to be present all along this journey as a key part of the Science for Policy ecosystem. The third point is, where do we go from here? And Stephen has already pointed in some direction regarding the how, what we need to really visualize and really imagine as being something that will work, not overburden the system, but really work in order to enhance this trust, this transparency, this caring policy making as well, apart from informed. And the takeaway number 3 is that for sure, we need to strengthen and support science for policy in Europe through coordinated action on all relevant fronts, addressing both demand and supply of science for policy. What are we therefore missing at the moment? I think what we're missing is that we actually need to identify a very coherent policy on science for policy. And if we are to fully realize the benefits of scientific knowledge and expertise in addressing our societal challenges, we need to create the appropriate channels. And our colleagues from JRC and DG Reform have already outlined their work in promoting exactly this, the capacity building in science for policy institutions and the skills. We spoke quite a bit yesterday about the skills. It is clear that the current setup of the RNI system doesn't make the policy engagement easy. From the RTD side, we are working on better alignment of RNI policy with science for policy. And of course, things can be improved, and there's a lot of room for improvement. We need to, I would say, empower, apart from enable the research sector to effectively engage with policy making for the betterment of society. Regarding the how, there are several ways, but I would suggest a few. For instance, by continuing to support the excellent science, as it is the bedrock itself of scientific advice and science for policy. By recognizing that societal goals are at the core of scientific endeavor. By ensuring that the highest ethical standards in research, its transparency and trustworthiness are secured. By valuing and rewarding policy engagement, not just knowledge production for its own sake. By creating clear career paths and opportunities for those researchers who have the potential and inclination to engage with policy making. Or also by continuing to engage with our counterparts in the national administrations to co-create this change. In short, we need to perhaps think about a renaissance of the social contract, and the social contract between science and society. It's not that it's dead, I don't think it's dead, but I think we need to redimension it also for the strengthening of our own democratic society and also our fair society. And I think we need to also rethink the research and innovation system to ensure that it delivers the societal benefits of scientific research. And I think it is a good moment to do that. We are thinking about and reflecting about the next generation of Horizon Europe. And I think all this should be really going into that pot of reflections, and I would dare say to have a prominent role, or at least a horizontal role, a streak that is clearly visible. You have heard also during the conference about many actions, initiatives and networks the Commission is developing to strengthen and support science for policy in Europe. We are working on the case and we are doing it together with you. To conclude, dear friends, our journey towards building better science for policy ecosystems in Europe is both ambitious but it is necessary too. It is requiring quite an unwavering type of commitment, a conviction, a collaboration, and an innovation. And I very much look forward to embark upon it with you all. Together we will create a future where science is not just a source of knowledge, but also a powerful catalyst for positive change in our societies and the world. Stay tuned, and we are convinced that the best is yet to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Joanna, and to you, Stephen, and to Mr. Bonjean earlier. And I think that's a very nice point to leave and close the conference with. The best is yet to come. On behalf of the Commission and the organisers of this event, I'd like to, first of all, thank you all for participating and being so brilliant in terms of your questions, your interaction. To those of you who joined online, wonderful to have you with us and for submitting your questions and input. And of course, to every single person who has been involved in creating this conference and in pulling it off. Too numerous to name, and I won't name one name. You're all brilliant. Thank you so much for that. And perhaps you could, ladies and gentlemen, show your thanks.